Shabbat Shalom, my friends. Welcome back to our Torah Conversations. A special shout out for all of those who were at Economowalk last week for the Nafti retreat. We love you guys forever. We love you guys. Our Sedra is the very first chapters in the Book of Leviticus, Leviticus chapter 1 and following. If you look closely at the word Leviticus, what do you see? Leviticus, Levi, Levite, right? This is a book that will focus on the work of the Levites, the Kohanim, dealing therefore with sacrifice. Rabbinic scholars therefore came to refer to this particular volume of the Torah as Torah Kohanim. This is the rule book of the priests. There are almost no narratives in the book of Leviticus, no great stories to share with the kids, no heroic acts or unfathomable miracles, just mostly sacrifices. If you want to atone, do this. If you want to offer thanks, do this. If you want to ask for divine help, do this. The narratives of the Torah don't actually resume until we finish the book of Leviticus and get to the book of Numbers. That's why parents are sometimes not at all happy when they find out that their bar bat mitzvah has been assigned a Torah portion out of the book of Leviticus. What could, they ask, what could be spiritually uplifting about sprinkling blood around an altar or burning incense or presenting wave offerings of grain? So they would say to me, come on, Rabbi, let's give her that section about the talking donkey. That's cool. Or maybe he can read a little bit about the plagues. That's fun. Nechama Leibowitz, in her volume entitled New Studies in Leviticus, takes us into a truly historic debate between Maimonides and Nachmanides regarding why God wants us to sacrifice in the first place. So, first of all, we'll start with Maimonides. What does Rambam have to say? Rambam, you know, a world-renowned scholar, scientist, physician, philosopher, master of the entirety of Jewish literature, and a man of no small ego. Maimonides had no great love for sacrifice. Indeed, he regarded sacrifice as an evil that the Israelites had learned in pagan polytheistic Egypt. Maimonides believed, what? That philosophic study of the nature of existence and of the nature of God, that's what God really wants from us. But first, Rambam says, the Israelites had to be weaned from acquired pagan practice. So God temporarily mandated a form of sacrifice so that eventually people could stop sacrificing and learn to focus solely on the one God. Really? So all those laws in the book of Leviticus, that's kind of like 1/5 of the Torah, just to wean the people from sacrifice? Rambam said, yep, you got it, that's right. You can't just suddenly tell the people everything that you learned was wrong. First, we'll change the focus of that sacrifice to the one God. And ultimately, sacrifice will be allowed to wither away. And don't be fooled, Maimonides added. Don't think that God is all that interested in prayer or supplication either. They too are just steps that need to be taken to move the people to the very highest forms of addressing and approaching God. The prophets warned us not to believe that all those sacrifices and all those religious ceremonies are really what God wants of us, not for Maimonides. They're all, including prayer, just temporary, deficient religious practices. I like that phrase. Temporary, deficient religious practices that ultimately must be discarded and replaced. Now, Leibowitz turns to Ramban Nachmanides. Ramban said that Rambam's teaching was preposterous, and that Rambam was sounding like a false prophet. Wow, pretty nasty. Ramban offers a two-tier rebuttal. First of all, Ramban says, people need the physical to help deal with their personal problems. Guilt, fear, yearning, gratitude. Sacrifices were needed to help people deal with real human concerns. The sacrifices, therefore, were instituted because God cares about us, and we need the sacrifices, not God. Then Nachmanides said, this explanation which I just shared with you, that's really what you're supposed to tell the masses, the ones who had never been initiated into mystical truths. So he wrote this, quote, in translation. This explanation we just gave, number one, is plausible and appeals to the mind, and it addresses human imagination. However, in the context of mystical truth, sacrifices contain hidden mysteries. One answer for the masses, one answer for the initiates. In other words, Nachmanides offered an answer that would satisfy the many, but falls short of enlightening those who seek the innermost mystical secrets of Torah. Both Ramban and Ramban were offering their explanations, and the big public ones directed to the masses. Both Ramban and Ramban knew that those answers are not sufficient for the enlightened few. For Rambam, the enlightened few were those who sought to allow their minds and the mind of the active, capital A, intellect, capital I, to meld. That's the real goal. For Ramban, the enlightened few were the initiates into the mysteries of the Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism. They could not be further apart. And Ramban would never print for public consumption the profound truths that he believed sacrifices concealed. So, do the sacrifices exist in the Book of Leviticus as an inoculation against pagan practices? Are the sacrifices real but insufficient means of drawing near to God? Should we yearn for the reestablishment of the sacrificial cult, or do we celebrate its disappearance? And what do we do with the fact that the prophets, even the loftiest of the social justice prophets, never actually repudiated sacrificial worship? So, for just one example, Micah 6:8. It has been told you, O humankind, what is good and what God demands of you. You know this. To do justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with your God, period. No mention in that little trilogy of burnt offerings. That's a social justice prophet. And our Sedra today begins, when any one of you presents an offering of cattle, when a person presents a meal offering or a peace offering, a wholeness offering, when a person is guilty and brings. No mention here of doing justly and loving mercy. Very interesting. Now, I wouldn't dare to challenge Rambam. His wisdom was superhumanly great. And I wouldn't dare to challenge Ramban. He knew too many things about the world of mysticism, and that could be, personally, very dangerous. But I do have a few personal takeaways. I suspect that by now you do as well. Takeaway one. The word sacrifice means consecrated or set aside. I've always been drawn to the notion that consecrating or setting aside something, time, money, energy, whatever, that is ours for a significant purpose, setting aside for a significant purpose that is good and useful, that should be part of our moral education. I believe that. Takeaway one. We don't need to burn cows. but we do need to sacrifice. Takeaway 2. The Israelites did not leave Egypt and suddenly become 21st century Jews. Sometimes we get a little mixed up about that. The past had a lingering hold on us for centuries. Egyptian and Canaanite paganism had to be confronted, and we had to be weaned from them. But there's a big difference between weaning and going cold turkey. Intentionally or unintentionally, the book of Leviticus served what ultimately became the weaning process. Third takeaway. Personal comment, I have voted the straight Rambam ticket for decades, and I am not changing my affiliation now. Sacrifice is not the noblest of ways to approach God. Prayer and supplication, they're good, but they're not sufficient. Excellent, but not sufficient. You have to have reason and constant study to develop more elevated pathways to understand and to encounter God. Fourth takeaway. The most important thing here is not which of the paths you choose to take, but that you are committed to taking a path. So if yours is a world of strict observance, then that works for you. That's good. If yours is a world of meditation and introspection and mysticism, cool, that's fine. That works for you. If yours is a world of committed study and thought, that works for you. And finally, if yours is a complex personal mixture of all of the above, okay, that works for you too. All that is asked of us as we begin our study of the book of Leviticus is that we choose a preferred path and we walk in it. It's amazing how Rambam and Ramban really went at each other. Okay, that's it for now. We have begun the study of the book of Leviticus. There's much to learn as we choose and then walk our preferred paths in understanding this entire book. So have a wonderful Shabbat. And speaking about sacrifice, please take a couple of seconds, hit share, so that others will come now to join our conversation. Have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom.